Tucker Carlson is denying that Christians are being genocided in Nigeria right now. He's promoting the communist Maduro regime in Venezuela, and he hosts a foreign operative for them on his show without disclosing it. We also look at Candace Owens' humiliating interview with CNN this week, and we talk about Trump's 50-year mortgage proposal and $2,000 tariff stimulus checks. So much on the show today, guys. Stick around till the end. So, Tucker Carlson cares a lot about Israel. We know this. It's almost all he talks about, and that is why he has decided to completely gloss over the real genocide that is happening right now around the world, which is, of course, in Nigeria. And he's also at the same time defending communist dictators. The most jarring example of this is with Nicolas Maduro, the communist dictator of Venezuela. And by the way, both these are actually connected, which we'll get into in a second. It just gets crazy, the amount of corruption that is going on with Tucker Carlson and his show right now. This week, he hosted an operative for the Maduro regime. His name is Robert Amsterdam. And before I show you the receipts and all of the crazy things going on with him, here's what Tucker has said about Venezuela and Maduro in the past year.
So the question is why? Why are we doing this? Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing. And that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics, not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned. Abortion is banned. Sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close.
Okay, so nobody wants to see gay marriage and abortion banned more than me. But to defend Maduro is insane. He is literally a communist. By the way, I would not give up all the rights that we have as Americans for banning those things. As much as I care about that, we actually have rights in this country. We have democracy. And as it stands, people don't want that. As you know, the majority of people don't want those things. Therefore, it's not happening. In Venezuela, people have no rights. Believe me, I know. I've got dozens of friends actually from Maracaibo, Caracas in Venezuela who are very conservative. And they say the same thing. They didn't stay in Venezuela, right? They left not only because they were being persecuted because they were conservatives and they were Christians, but because what they're saying is, I would rather have rights in a country that unfortunately makes bad democratic decisions than in a country that kind of has some moral standings, but at the same time forces their citizens to do whatever they want. And obviously Maduro, you know, we talk about free and fair elections on the conservative movement a lot. Maduro has none of those things. And I find that ironic because Tucker Carlson has talked about election integrity in the past. He does not seem to care about the fact that Maduro rigs every election for himself. In any case, Tucker Carlson had on his show this man named Robert Amsterdam this week, kind of out of nowhere, like you don't really know where he came from. And if you dig into this guy, it becomes impossible to ignore what Tucker is doing. It is very scary. This is according to Joel Mowbray, who uncovered these documents I'm about to show you. This is what he said. This is on Venezuela. Again, it's going to bleed over into Nigeria in a second because Robert Amsterdam is all over this. He said, turns out Tucker's guest this Friday, Robert Amsterdam, is still an active FARA registered agent of Venezuela. Amsterdam earned $4 million in just the first 4 months of the engagement from the Maduro regime starting in January of 2020. According to the relevant FARA filings, see below, and I'll put those up for you to see, Amsterdam was engaged to persuade the U.S. to mitigate or remove sanctions on Maduro's Venezuela. So he is a propagandist, essentially. He continues and says this, Tucker did not discuss Venezuela with Amsterdam. But during that Friday show, Tucker said that this guest was, quote, one of the people that I talk to most off camera about what is happening to the Christian population of the world. It is unclear, and that's the end of the quote. Then this journalist concludes, he said, it's unclear how much Amsterdam is currently being paid by Venezuela because he's not submitted an updated contract to FARO since 2020. So again, Tucker Carlson is actively engaged in a Maduro propagandist who he personally says Again, this isn't just like a random interview where he maybe talked about Venezuela. That would have been super interesting, very different. He conveniently did not talk about Venezuela the whole time. And, again, in quotes, said that this is one of his greatest confidants when talking about Christianity. And this is where we get into Nigeria, which Tucker has not talked about on his show at all, by the way. Again, he's talked about Israel plenty of times and the reason why I bring up Israel is because these are both supposed genocides, right? We've got the Gaza genocide. I say that in quotes. It's absolutely not a genocide. But the Nigeria genocide, which is real, and Tucker comes out with this kind of self-righteous attitude of, I care about people dying. Which, fair enough, right? But he has, he's conveniently omitted what's going on in Nigeria while talking about Israel every single day. You can look it up. Tucker has not done any episode about Nigeria before this one with Robert Amsterdam. Again, a communist puppet, propagandist, who was invited to talk about it. Here is what this conversation looked like.
But he's all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, deeply concerned about the plight of Christians in Nigeria, which I want to restate. Maybe a totally valid concern, I don't know. But that's weird. What is that? All of a sudden, everybody's concerned about people who clearly have no track record of being interested in Christians at all, including Ted Cruz. What is going on?
There are probably an equal or more number of Muslim deaths. I am grateful to President Trump for identifying these attacks on Christians. Believe it or not, you can blame some of this on the French, who had this.
I know nothing about it, but I believe you anyway.
They had
So Tucker knows nothing about the genocide of Christians in Nigeria. Massive news story, by the way. But he just believes Robert Amsterdam 100%. Tucker has done literally hundreds of videos on Israel, on the Gaza war, on Mossad, etc., which is all fine, by the way. I've got no problem. All those people are going to be like, oh, you're trying to defend Israel. Look, I don't care. You can do all the interviews you want on that. But the problem is he proclaims to be pro-Christian, yet never once talks about or cares about the genocide in Nigeria. And the first time that he brings it up, he says, it's probably not happening. Probably not. And the guest who this is the craziest part, and you're going to see this in the filing that I'm about to show you. The guest that he brings on, Robert Amsterdam, is a pro-Muslim, anti-Christian actor. How do we know this? Joel Mowbray uncovered more things about Robert Amsterdam, Tucker's guest. Here's what he says. I'm going to skip around a little bit here. He says the Tucker Carlson guest on Friday, who slammed Ted Cruz and declared that there is no campaign of targeted killings of Christians in Nigeria, lobbyist and PR flack Robert Amsterdam had for years represented a leading Nigerian official closely associated with Fulani Islamists. So not only has this man been engaged in receiving millions of dollars from the Maduro regime, he also is in league with Islamists. By the way, including the very militias that have been slaughtering Christians in Nigeria. Interesting. Robert Amsterdam, he continues, feted by Carlson as, quote, defending Christians around the world, unquote, represented Nasir El-Rufai, who from 2015 to 2023 was the governor of the northern Nigerian state of Kaduna, home to the bulk of Fulani Islamist militias that have been slaughtering thousands of Christians. Fascinating. At the very end, this journalist, again, fantastic work from him. I want to shout him out, Joel Mowbray. Go check him out on X right now. This is really, really good work. And you can see all of the receipts that he puts them in the tweets. I'm not including them all in the show just because there's a lot of them, but you can go there and find them if you want. Again, you can find them on X. This is how he concludes. He says, because Amsterdam never registered under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, for any Nigerian entity, the exact nature and duration is unknown with this man. There is no record of Amsterdam ever representing, protecting, and/or defending persecuted Nigerian Christians, and his X profile does not show even a single post warning about the attacks carried out by Fulani Islamists. Yet, and this sums it up at the very end, yet this man, Tucker Carlson, used to refute claims of Nigerian Christians being systematically slaughtered at the hands of Fulani Islamists. So just to sum this up, he brought on the first person to talk about Nigeria and what's going on, and it was a man who has never talked about Christians being slaughtered, not a single time, but he has represented Maduro and the Islamists that happen to be doing the genociding. I just don't know how we look at this, combined with all the other things that Tucker has said, and not come to the conclusion that Tucker is in bed with Islamists. I haven't even talked about Qatar yet. That's another episode. I've already talked about it at great length. He's so critical of Israel, which again is fine. If you want to be critical of other foreign nations, go ahead. But to come and say that Israel is evil every day for 2 years on your show and not say one word about a Christian genocide, and then host a communist supporting Islam Islamist propagandists as your source for denying the Nigerian genocide. It's just too obvious to not prove some level of intentionality. Yeah, I don't know if he's taking money. I don't know. Like, that's a real answer. I just don't know. And I don't want to be like Tucker and Candace Owens who come out and just say random stuff like this is happening. No, we don't know. All I'm doing is showing this is what's happening. And it's really hard not to believe that something is going on. Fortunately, people on the ground are calling him out for it. Here is a missionary in Nigeria calling on Tucker Carlson to repent for lying about what's happening on the ground.
Tucker, why don't you go visit Nigeria yourself? Why don't you go to the middle belt of Nigeria? Why don't you take yourself to Benue State? Why don't you go take yourself to Plateau? Go take yourself to southern Kaduna. Go take a trip to Taraba. Why don't you go talk to the survivors of these massacres that are now living in total, awful, horrendous conditions? The 3 million Christians that have been displaced from their homes. Why don't you go talk to the survivors of the 7,000 Christians that have been massacred since January 1st? I don't know what game you're playing or who's influencing you or who's paying you behind closed doors to regurgitate a pro-Islamist narrative.
America first? No. Sharia law first for Qatari Carlson. Meanwhile, guys, Candace Owens actually did a CNN interview, which shocked me, frankly. I don't know why she would do it. But in less than 30 seconds, some low-level reporter at CNN was able to completely humiliate and embarrass Candace Owens for being a conspiracy nut. Take a look.
When you say you believe that Charlie Kirk was betrayed by someone close to him, what do you mean?
I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be a lot of financial reports that are coming out. And I, first and foremost, do not believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I want to be very clear on that. Whether he was involved, I think the answer is yes. I think that's obvious.
And your basis for saying he didn't act alone is what?
I don't know, maybe the weird Fed messages that were concocted out of thin air that had no timestamp and were written like they were speaking in 1822, among other things. Their lack of an ability to answer any basic questions about what took place.
But do you have any proof that the messages were made up? Because that would be easily proven.
Yeah, but they didn't put timestamps on them, and Discord came out and said they didn't exist.
This was supposedly text messages, not Discord messages. It's my understanding from the indictment.
I actually did not read that they were text messages.
The indictment calls them text messages.
What would it be like the feds are like on a computer, typing it out back and forth?
That's exactly what it is. The feds made up the text messages.
But you don't have anyone from like the FBI telling you that or law enforcement?
I have leaks.
Okay.
No.
Has anyone leaked to you?
And Tyler Robinson has.
But has anyone said to you, even off the record, yeah, we faked these?
I have very strong sources everywhere on both sides.
Well, I look forward to seeing the evidence of that.
Yeah, sure. Because when we keep talking about evidence, it's like, who's going to present that evidence? Like the mainstream media? Like who are you expecting to come out?
Yes, that would be a hot story.
No, it wouldn't be.
It would be.
It wouldn't be.
If the FBI, if I had a source telling me, if I had proof that the FBI faked those messages, that would be an enormous story.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we live in a post-Epstein world and we know how stories get shut down.
Under 1 ounce of scrutiny, she crumbled. This CNN journalist is not hard hitting. This is a random lady. No one has ever heard of her. And literally just the question, what is your evidence? It just destroyed and shattered Candace Owens' whole worldview. She couldn't stand up to it. Candace didn't even know that those messages with Tyler Robinson were texts and have already been forensically verified. You can go on, the FBI, okay, whatever. You've got zero evidence to support that. So keep whining. We, the actual conservatives, are going to spend our time prosecuting the leftists that did this. You can go protect them. We're not going to do that. Her only response is horribly elitist, by the way. And by the way, I should back up. She has had a daily podcast about Charlie Kirk's assassination for 2 months now. And she did not know that fact. These are not real people. This is not a journalist. This is someone who wants to grift off of her friend dying for 2 months. She's made hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe in the millions at this point, doing this. Her only response is a horribly elitist one, in my opinion. She says, oh, I have very high sources. That's what she says. You couldn't possibly understand how well connected I am. That's her attitude in that. She'll never say who they are. Very convenient, to just say, oh yeah, I got those sources in the FBI, who I told you not to trust, by the way, but that's who I'm trusting. We can talk about that later. At the end of the day, Candace Owens is a narcissist. It's very clear from this interview. She's very angry. Someone who wants to go out and tell the truth, who's very well read, well researched. When someone asks them a question, they jump on the opportunity to shed that light. Candace Owens doesn't do that. She is angry at very simple questions. She has changed her theory about Charlie Kirk over a dozen times now at this point. And here is what I come to. We should not cancel her. We should not. What we should do is we should laugh at her, mock her into oblivion for the lies that she's told about someone who is dead now, who she claims was her friend. Before we get back to the news, guys, I wanted to invite you to subscribe to my new Substack. Substack is a weekly newsletter that comes right to your inbox, and it's completely free to you. And I talk about things that I wasn't able to get to on the show, or because big tech would have censored me. Fortunately, Substack never does that. Go check it out right now. Again, completely free to you. The link is in the description below. Donald Trump is calling for 50-year mortgages now, and I understand what he's doing. Obviously, he wants home prices to be cheaper. It's one of our largest economic difficulties, but this is not the way, and I say that as a Trump supporter, by the way. I'll show you why. Here is what he tweeted out. Great American presidents, FDR. He's the one that introduced the 30-year mortgage. Next to him is a picture of himself with 50-year mortgage. Here's the problem with that, guys. FDR was one of the worst presidents ever. Ever. So why would you, as Donald Trump, stick a picture of yourself next to FDR? That is beyond me. Second off, a 50-year mortgage, worse than renting 100%. Anyone who understands basic finance will understand this. There is a much better alternative to what Trump is saying, as we will talk about. This is why I say it's worse than renting. Look at these two houses. Both cost, it's the same house, right? But in two different time periods. $500,000. Okay, let's just assume that's around the median home price in a lot of states. It is in my home state of Utah. Unfortunately, yes, it's ridiculous, but that's the reality. In 2021, with a 3% interest rate, that would be a $2,100 payment with a 30-year mortgage. In 2025, with only two changes here, 7% interest rate instead, and a 50-year mortgage, it is $3,000, $900 more. So the interest rate matters, guys. By the way, total interest payments over a 30-year mortgage of that would be $257,000, a lot of interest. If you look at what it would be for a 50-year mortgage, $1 million. $1 million in the words of Donald Trump. And that ratio, if you look at it, you're looking at 50%, right? You've got a $500,000 house. With this first scenario we're looking at, about 50% of the worth of the house is going to be an interest, right? That's that ratio. But if you look at the second option, it's not 50%, it is 200%. You're paying $1 million of interest to only get $500,000 in equity. And this is where it gets really crazy. If you look at the amortization charts, this is of 6.5% interest, which is what we're looking at right now. This is what we have in the nation. And let me show you what this looks like with the same interest rate over a 15-year mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, and a 50-year mortgage. What you see with the 15, year one, interest paid $32,000. Dang, that's a lot of money. But at least you can see you get $20,000 principal. Okay, that's a sizable amount of equity in your home, right? Let's look over at a 30-year mortgage. It gets much worse. Interest, same amount, $32,000. Principal goes down to $5,000. You're getting almost no equity in your house, but get this, go to the 50-year, you will not believe this. Interest, the same, $32,000. You get $1,300 in equity, guys, for a 50-year mortgage. So sure, you own the house, but not really. You basically paid the bank rent of $32,000, and sure, you get $1,300 of equity out. Congratulations. You basically, you've got far more equity in your car. You've got more equity in your wedding ring than you do after 5 years in your house. So not only are you paying just as much interest as you would in rent, but when you own a home, you might have private mortgage insurance, hopefully not, but a lot of people do now because you don't get 20% down. You've got property taxes, you've got insurance, and you've got repair costs. So that's not even including that. So if instead, just follow me for a second here, you just paid rent. I'm saying instead of the 50-year mortgage, you just paid rent and invested that same amount in the S&P 500, you would literally have millions of dollars more than if you did a stupid 50-year mortgage. It's financially illiterate, does not work. Now, with all that said, obviously we need to fix the cost of housing. I'm not saying that it should be this way. And the far better thing to do, and what a lot of people are talking about on the internet right now, and I think a lot of conservatives are and a lot of Republicans are coming out against Trump on this, which is very good, is that we need to lower interest rates and we need to lower the cost of housing. I mean, it's that simple. We don't need to go further into debt. And then the question is, how do we do that? How do you lower interest rates? You can only do that if inflation is not high, because we use the rates to curb inflation. And the problem is inflation is bad still. Right now we're at 3% inflation. That is 50% higher than the Fed targets at 2%. It's horrible right now because of the bloated spending. So housing prices are high because we don't have enough supply as well. So if you're really wanting cheaper houses, the formula is actually quite simple. Deport the illegal immigrants because that brings demand down. Incentivize builders to build more houses, that brings the supply up. And stop printing money so then you can drop the rates. You do that, you will have way more money. The amortization, charts are going to look way better. I would never recommend someone to rent then, but under a 50-year mortgage, it just makes no sense. And again, you're still trying to buy something that is still wildly out of your price range. You're just sending yourself more into debt to do it. Now, the problem with that last step, with dropping the rates, is it seems neither party wants to curb inflation right now, including Republicans. Trump tweeted this out this weekend. He's talking about the tariffs in this. He says, quote, "People that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation." Not true. I'm sorry, it's just not true. 3% inflation is not nothing. And a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever. That is true. We're taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt, $37 trillion. Record investment in the USA, plants and factories going up all over the place. Then is the problem. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone. Look, I don't like the tariffs. They're a tax on us. But if we're going to get taxed, all I ask is that it will pay down the deficit so that the dollar can be strengthened, so that inflation won't be so bad. If these stimulus checks go out, it will be 2020 all over again. How have we not learned our lesson at this point? They will give us $2,000 and our cost of living will rise $4,000 next year. That's how it works. That's how socialism works. If you want a good reading on this, Henry Hazlitt writes Economics in One Lesson. Fantastic book. It basically perfectly disproves stimulus checks. Just says why they're stupid and they don't work. In fact, they are detrimental to the health of your economy and your cost of living. It's not helpful. It literally makes the problem worse, not just for housing, but for everything, for groceries, cars, gas, etc. I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this, guys, is this is a horrible idea. I want Trump to succeed. That's why I'm speaking out against it. This economic populism has got to stop. It is financially illiterate. It's economically illiterate. It might feel good for like a month. Might seem, electorally, politically, like it's going to boost Trump's chances, but it will hurt us, not for years to come, but for decades. The progressive left is literally a cult. I talk about it in my book, A New Cult. It's Christmas time, guys. One of the best gifts, I think, is the gift of knowledge. And that's why you should go check out my book right now. Buy it for a loved one, maybe a leftist in your family who needs to be put in their place in a loving way. Go check it out right now. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, everybody. Please like the video so other great patriots like yourselves will see it. And you can tune in every single weekday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show, or you can watch another video right here.